This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 398 of the More Than Just Code podcast. My name is Tim Mitra, and I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined by Jaime Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty good. So, haven't got much fact check. I don't know did you listen to the last couple of episodes of More Than Just Code by any chance?
I did, yeah.
What do you think about the last episode with Sparky? That was pretty cool, eh?
It was pretty neat. That was the running claw, right?
Yeah,
open claw, and then giving it like more access to physical stuff.
Yeah, and
chatting about octopus, I think, because forget why he said he needed that as
he tells him 5 interesting things about octopuses to cancel out so that the AI could learn to cancel out its own speech, right, and ignore it, kind of thing. So
right,
yeah, because I think it's still text based. Like it's still, when it speaks, it transcribes it and then looks at it and realizes it's him talking, not the thing. But it's pretty cool. Like, you know, I just told him I'm in Toronto, and it like immediately picked up on the weather, and you know, pretty neat. It's pretty weird. I mean, it did take a few seconds for I kind of cut it out of the show, but it does take a few seconds for it to sort of sit there and think for a minute, you know. But yeah. So yeah, those pauses don't make good podcasts. So
right,
I got them out. Yeah, so we're gathering together to talk about the Apple event. Apple events, I guess, last couple of days, because there was a big announcement today, but there's been announcements all Monday, Tuesday, as well as today, Wednesday, when we're recording. We were going to have a few guests on the show, but we're not sure about the weather is not cooperating with them, so they may not be able to join us. So, you know, I want to ask you something. So this is, you remember Aaron used to always go on about how he wanted to have an iPhone with a stylus? Right? Do you think the possibility of the folding phone, which is supposed to be like a phone when it's closed, but an iPad when it's unfolded, do you think they'll include pencil support in that?
I guess it depends on how big it gets. Like, I don't think you would have like a holder for the pencil per se. Although it would be kind of fun to have it be. I mean, because it kind of starts to look like something that Batman is wearing, or maybe the little Pip-Boy from Fallout.
That's a little bit big, that thing.
I'm going to choose my ultimate dongle town for my wrist. But it's not unreasonable if it gets large enough to be, well, it basically unfolds to a miniature iPad mini size. I'm like, well, it'd be kind of nice to, again, I wouldn't necessarily carry a pencil around, but it'd be nice to be able to use one, pull it out of your book bag or something. Yeah,
I got to say the pencil, like, I don't know, where's my pencil actually, now you say that. Yeah, I mean, the pencil and the iPad, they get separated a lot, unless you have one of those cases that has like a slot for the pencil. It's definitely something that's been, I don't think they really thought that one through, because the other thing too is like the Logitech Muse for the Vision Pro, right? I made a clip for mine so I could mount it on the side of the Vision Pro, and it stays there even when I hardly use it. But still, yeah, because it's just too easy to lose these things, right? If you're not using them every day, or if I find when I'm traveling, I kind of throw my iPad into my backpack, and I take the pencil out and stick it in a pen slot, right? So, but right. I think that's where mine is right now. It's probably still sitting in my backpack, dying. But yeah, I think I like the idea of like when it's open, or even when it's closed. If it has, I guess it all depends on the technology and the folding LED, right? Whether it can support the touch sensitiveness of the pencil, right?
Yeah.
Because I kind of get the impression that it's not going to be like a hard glass. It's probably going to be. I don't know if you've seen some of those Samsung phones and stuff that have the fold. They're kind of, you can sort of see that they must have some flexibility in the screen, right? But it's an interesting idea. Anyway, so they introduced a few new products. We can rattle through them real quick. I mean, we can sort of hit the highlights. We have a new iPad, new economical phone, I guess, new display, the promised MacBook Pros with the new chips, and the shiny new tiny computer, right? The low-cost computer, I guess, right? So we start at the top and work our way down?
Sure.
Right. So first up, we had the iPad Air M4. I think I just bought my wife an iPad Air Christmas time. I can't remember if I got a 2 or a 3. Probably a 3. But yeah, so this one now has the N1 chip, which gives it Wi-Fi 7. And it also has the C1X, which apparently it's a cellular chip, but apparently much better, much more extended, I guess. And from a dollars and cents point of view, it's the same sort of pricing as before, I think, $599 and $799 for the 13-inch. So it's an 11-inch format and a 13. So any thoughts on iPads? What are you rocking these days, iPad-wise?
I've gone without an iPad for a bit here, and I would probably go with a Pro just to make sure it's beefy enough for what I'd like to do, but I bet I could probably get away with an Air. Like, I mostly was not really using it for a bunch of productivity. I was mostly using for, consumption of media. So I don't know if it was just like a psychological need, to try to max out, hang on to that thought that will come up in other products later.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, except for the Macs here, I think most of these things were sort of like a secondary part of the market, right? Like, because I'm trying to think now, I can't remember what the difference. The Pro has the M5, obviously, right? The iPad Pro.
Right.
But I'm just looking here at the on the website. Maybe we can do a side-by-side. Where's that tech spec thing? Or compare, or whatever you call it, right? Yeah, the Pro is just more expensive. It starts at $1,000 US, right? Maybe it's the pencil support. No, actually, that's not true, because my wife has the new a pencil. We got her too, as well.
Okay, with the brand new pencil.
And it does the hover thing that my lame old iPad Pro doesn't do, because it's too old. Yeah, it's funny, like, for me, since I got the Vision Pro, I hardly ever touch my iPad. It just stays on my desk.
I see.
But it used to be like when I was watching a movie, I'd have it on my lap and I'd be checking out IMDb or whatever, And during COVID and all that kind of stuff, it sort of, with the Magic Keyboard, it became my place to take notes, right, during meetings.
Yeah.
But here's a compare page. I found one.
Are you one of those people that would do like the handwriting and then use the character recognition?
Occasionally.
I feel like there's like a split. There's people who are like full on doing that. So it's like a, electric categorization version of what a pen and paper would be. And then some people, because you mentioned the smart keyboard, were like, no, absolutely not. I'm just going to type everything. Okay, so here's the difference between the Pro and the... But yeah, to answer that question, you would think I would be, right? Because I've had a Newton and all that kind of stuff. I had bought into that whole handwriting recognition and the drawing and stuff. I mean, even before Apple came out with the pencil, I was using those tools. Like, I think it was one called Paper, where you could draw, and if you hold, like you draw a rough triangle and you hold, it turns it into a nice sharp triangle. And the iPads do that now, right? And where you draw a circle and you hold it, it turns it into a nice circle or an oval. And you could draw arrows and have them, it automatically put an arrowhead on them. That's kind of cool, but I mean, like, I don't really do that kind of drawing very much. And I've done a few artistic things, like I've done some sketches and paintings and stuff with the iPad using the pencil. And of course, I did some sculpture with the pencil as well, right? But yeah, it's not my day-to-day thing. I think it's kind of one of those things, if you're drawing all the time. When I was in high school, I drew all the time, but I kind of fallen off that habit, right? I see. Gotcha.
Anyway, so here's the difference between the Pros and the 11-inch Air, for example, between the M5 and M4. That's one thing. The colors, you get more colors in the Air. You only get silver or space black and silver with the Pro. Pricing obviously is different. It's about $400 more on both models. The Pro has ProMotion technology. They both have P3 wide color, True Tone, anti-reflective coating. You can get the nano texture coating on the Pro, I believe, right, as an option. Obviously, 2 extra cores on the CPUs. Same size neural engine. You get multiple cameras on the Pro. You get they both have 12 megapixel wide, but looks like there's other cameras. I think there's LiDAR on the Pro. That's what the difference is too. That's a huge thing if you're into 3D, right? Oh, I see. And then true depth camera system on the front. The Pro supports Thunderbolt connections, whereas the other one is just a USB-C connector. And Face ID on the Pros, where it's Touch ID on the Airs, right? Okay. But otherwise, side by side, they're pretty much comparable. So if you don't need LiDAR and you can live without Face ID, I would say it's pretty comparable purchase choice, right?
Yeah,
You know?
it does sound very similar based on that.
Yeah. And I mean, the starter iPad in US dollars is still $349. So, yeah. So at $599, it's still not a inexpensive iPad, but it's funny. I was going to say $599 seems to be the price point for everything today that we're going to talk about, except for the displays, right?
I think that is a good thing to keep in mind. Historically, we have talked about, man, Apple really charges a lot for RAM compared to when you go buy RAM off the street. But a lot of people online are like, oh my God, the Apple stuff is going to cost so much money because RAM prices are going up. Well, Apple, just like the industrious ant, has been storing RAM bucks for the winter. And now that everybody else has to charge more, it's like, well, we'll just get slightly less margin than usual and keep our pricing in line with what we would normally
Well, that's also something they did. They did like long-term deals with companies, right? They said, hey, we'll buy it for this price for 10 years and kind of lock the suppliers in, right? So now the suppliers got to take it on the nose, right?
Yeah. There's, things we could certainly, shake our fists at metaphorically at like Mr. Cook, but supply chains is like the whole reason he is where he is today, right? And he knows how to make that stuff work.
Yeah. The one speaking of, since you brought up RAM, it's a good point to look at the capacities for the between the Pro and the iPad Air is the Air starts at 128 and the Pro starts at 256, and the top iPad Air is 1 terabyte versus 2 terabytes on the Pro models. But the other thing they don't talk about is how much working memory you have. I thought I saw 16 gigabytes somewhere, maybe in an article I was reading yesterday, which would be a lot of. They don't really sort of talk. They don't have that on the compare sheet on the thing here. So, yeah. So iPad Air M4, decent. Supports. I believe it supports the Pencil, the new fancy Pencil. Yes, supports Pencil Pro and the lame old Pencil, the USB-C one. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So the other thing they announced yesterday, this is Monday. Okay? These two are Air and the iPad Air and the iPhone 17e were both announced on Monday morning in a press release, no event. So we're looking at the A19 chip in the 17e. It's basically, I mean, if you want to do a quick, the TLDR is it's the same phone as the 16. I think the chip is an upgrade, and there was something else about it that's new, but. So we'll run through it. So A19 for the processor, the C1X for the cellular chip. Oh, I didn't take a note of what networking chip it has. Same 48 megapixel fusion cameras before with the 16E and 2 times telephoto. Same 6.1 Super Retina XDR display OLED. Ceramic Shield 2. I think that might be new, right? Did the 16 have? Of course, we can't do a compare with the 16E because now Apple's taken it off the market.
Yeah. People are wondering, like, should you buy a 16? I'm like, you probably shouldn't. It seems like if you're buying a phone at this tier, the 17E as an Echo is your choice.
Yeah. Well, what does the 16 have? If I can get a compare page going here. Does it have a single camera on the 16? I think so, right?
Guess we'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to the tech compare page on the Apple site. Oh, here's a 17 versus the E. So it's slightly smaller than the 17. The 17E is the 17 is 6.3. This one is 6.1. Not that much of a difference, really. $200 less expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
They both have A19s. Both have 26 hours on the battery versus 30 on the battery. Compare all iPhone models. Found it. It's at the bottom. Let's see. Let's compare 17E to the 16 if I can. Yeah. Okay. So the 16 has 2 cameras, whereas which means it can do spatial photo as well, right? The 17E has 1 camera, same size as the one from before. I mean, an A18 chip versus A19. So the chip's an upgrade. This one has neural accelerators on the GPU.
Okay, so it's going to be better at running the models locally than 16, most likely.
Yeah. So it has the macro lens, so you can do zooms in, zoom ins. Yeah. So I guess side by side, they're pretty much the same phone. Oh, except that the capacity starts at 256. There's no 128 gigabyte model. on the 617E, which is good. It speaks to Apple's fabulous deals, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and MagSafe. They added MagSafe. That was the big difference.
Oh, was that not in the...
On the
base
16E, there was no MagSafe.
Oh, the 16E. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so the 17, 16, and the 17E all now have MagSafe. I guess it's kind of like soon all the phones will have MagSafe. You know?
Right.
Yeah, because what other phones do they have right now that you can get? 16 is the lowest one, right?
And the utility of that, with all the stands and things that you can add, battery packs and other things. I even noticed that you remember pop sockets, the little like discs that you put attached to the back of your phone, and then it sort of pops open and becomes like a handle or like a little stand if you want to put your iPhone there. So historically, those have been glue based, and so if you were wise and you preferred that kind of thing, you would put it on your case. If you were not wise, you get very mad when it starts ripping apart your phone when you try taking the back of your phone or you try taking it off. I noticed at I'm going to call it a dollar store, although it's right in the name, it's not a dollar. It's Five Below, kind of meant to imply $5 or less. Not necessarily true for everything, but it's kind of the gist of the store. In any case, they had newer model pop sockets that are MagSafe based. So you just slap it on the back of your phone, as is, and not have to worry about it tearing apart. Very easy to add and remove if you want it or not want it.
Okay. So the other differences here is that between the 16 and I assume 16E is that ceramic shield 2, I guess, was a new shield that they invented or introduced this year for drop protection and stuff like that. And this one has no camera control, like the little button on the side.
Okay.
Yeah, which, I mean, does anybody use that? I only use it by accident. I have it turned off, actually. I have to double click it to get the camera to come up, because it used to come up all the time for no reason. But I've never really found a good reason to use the camera control. If I need to change something about my photo, or the picture I'm taking, I usually tap on the menus and stuff, right? And one question I have, though, so I was reading the fine print today, and it said that iCloud starts at 99 cents US for a plan. I thought this is my question, there's no free iCloud anymore?
That is a good question. I don't know. I guess we'd have to go check out pricing online, because I'm looking at my Apple One service, and I don't really see a way to, or we don't want to mess with it, but I don't see a way to go lower than the 99 cents a month for 50 gig storage that I'm paying for as part of the bundle.
Oh, that's what you have as your part of your bundle? Yeah,
so I'm looking at my bundle right now. So iCloud Plus with 50 gig storage at 99 cents a month, Apple TV at $12.99 a month, Apple Music at $10.99 a month. Like, these are the individual prices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Apple Arcade at $6.99 a month. So instead of totaling whatever that is, or is it $19.95 a month for my tier? So I'm missing Apple News and Apple Fitness Plus, because those don't fit in my lifestyle.
You don't use it, or you're not in the Apple Plus. What am I in? I'm in the family one, or whatever, where you get everything. But
so you probably get Apple News, right?
I do get news, yeah. But I'm on a bigger plan, because between Carol and I, we have so many photos that it's just impossible to store them on the device, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because we went down to 256 models, right? Which I suppose in retrospect, if you look at the amount of money we're spending for iCloud versus the price of the phone, we're probably spending more than just buying the bigger phone, right? With more capacity. But I don't know, it's maybe false economy. But yeah, that 50 gig plan you were talking about that you have, that used to be free.
I thought it was 5. 5 was the free tier.
Yeah, I don't know if there's 5 gig iCloud anymore. That's why I asked the question. So for 99 cents, you get 50 gigs?
Yes.
Oh, that's not bad.
Like, I get down select by choosing individual services if I wanted to opt out of the bundle.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on to the next item, which is the Studio Display XDR. I grabbed a quote from one of the social networks, probably Threads or something, where Yuka Oshishi said, "As a proud owner of a Pro XDR, I'm jealous of the Studio Display XDR with its free stand." So not quite free, and somebody pointed out in a reply to her, I think if you get the Visa mount, it's like $300 less expensive. Okay, so here's the fact check from a couple of days later. Jaime and I both misread the announcement on the Studio Display, or at least the product pages on the Studio Display. There are two monitors that were introduced the other day. The Studio Display, which is a 27-inch 5K display, and the Studio Display XDR. The reason why I'm interrupting this segment is because we conflated the two monitors together. I'm going to play the whole thing in a minute, but just to go over the quick facts on the two displays. So the Studio Display, first of all, it's a 27-inch 5K Retina display, 14.7 million pixels, 600 nits of brightness, 1 billion colors, P3 wide color, 2 megapixel center stage camera with desk view, 3 mic array, 6 speakers with spatial audio, and includes Thunderbolt 5 ports. And I believe that's 2 Thunderbolt and 2 USB. But also, Apple introduced the Studio Display XDR, which is kind of the new version of the Pro Display XDR. It's a 27-inch diagonal measurement 5K Retina XDR display. It basically has a 5120 by 2880 resolution at 218 pixels per inch, Mili LED backlit with 2,304 dimming zones, up to 1,000 nit brightness SDR, and 2,000 peak 1 brightness at HDR, 120 hertz refresh rate, and adaptive sync. It also supports 1 billion colors, has P3, also Adobe RGB wide color gamuts, and True Tone technology. It comes with an optional nano texture glass. So does the Studio Display, by the way. You can get that with the nano texture as well. Also, it has two Thunderbolt 5 ports, as well as 2 USB-C. I'm just going to double check the port thing. We already screwed it up once. Yes, 2 Thunderbolt 5. Cool. Anyway, so I'm going to continue on with the rest of the show. So just bear in mind that we kind of conflated the two together. Oh, so yeah, before I go, the Studio Display starts at $15.99. Has various options beyond that, including stands and things like that. And the Studio Display XDR is $32.99 USD dollars. And that's it. So back to the show. Yeah, there's one more thing. Well, actually, two more things. The Studio Display XDR replaces the Pro Display XDR in Apple's product lineup. Notably, though, I think the Pro Display was 32 inches wide, and it was a 6K display because it was 6,016 pixels by 3,384 pixels. And the other thing, too, is that we talk about AppleCare in a few minutes, and the monthly price for the Pro Display XDR is $9.99 a month. So, yeah, carry on. But yeah, so they've introduced a 27-inch 5K Retina display. I think Mark was looking for 5K forever, right? 12 megapixel front camera for your Zoom meetings, 1,000 nits of brightness, SDR brightness, whatever that is, 2,000 nits of HDR brightness. Again, no idea what that is, and additional and wider color gamut than the previous display. I take it because I think the Pro XDR was really expensive, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
Yeah, comes with 2 Thunderbolt 5 ports and 2 USB-C ports, so 4 ports altogether on the back. And so, yeah, with stand, it's for the base model. It just tilts back and forth. But the one with the adjustable fancy-smancy thing is it says $32.99, so it's quite a bit expensive for quite a bit more money for that, for the option of being able to tilt your monitor however you like, right?
Yeah.
What would that be?
I mean, I was comparing with what I have here, which I've had. I've had this monitor. It's a Dell Ultra Sharp U2718Q 27-inch 4K IPS monitor. I just checked on Amazon. Buy those for $180 because it is a screen from 2019. It's doing fine because I'm not doing design work and other things. Yeah. It fits very nicely at 4K. It does a good job keeping the text sharp. And my old man eyes mean I have to sometimes hit the Command plus to make stuff bigger if I really can't read something.
So do you sit at your desk every day and work, or do you sit on the couch and join meetings and stuff? Or
I am the kind of fiddly person who does not like working off of just the laptop. I feel constrained, and so I like having the monitor in front of me. So that means I have to give up doing go work at a coffee shop. It's probably being semi-social if I'm doing that. I don't really work, I have to have my real estate.
Yeah.
And for people who are like, well, Stan, I know we've made fun of like what is it, like $99 wheels or something for the Mac Pro.
Yeah.
This, I think, is using that beautiful cantilever system that they have ever since like the Mac G4, iMac G4.
Yeah, I have a G4 behind me on my desk. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's one of those things that don't make sense if people haven't tried it. As like, I will tell you that this Dell, what's the model number? U2718Q is in Queen. The way that its stand works is serviceable, right? It's like, okay, it's fine. But it's jank. It doesn't feel premium, and I'm sure if I used the hinge enough, it would probably get slack and fall apart. Whereas those, for the Macs, the iMacs for back in the day, or what I presume to be the 2026 version of that same hinge, even better. It just feels amazing. Like, just go to the dang store, go try this out, and you'll be like, oh my gosh. I just move it exactly where I want to. I'm not futzing around. Oh, it's kind of dangling between two little spots that I would like it to be. You know, it's sitting between two little notches. It's an expensive thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say that it's not an expensive display, but it's a quality display.
Yours or the Studio display?
The Studio XDR. I don't know if I'm in the market for one per se, but I mean,
not
if I
did, $200 on a monitor, right?
I just like ride it into the ground. Probably, I'd be like, this is like one of the last monitors I'll ever buy until I get something different.
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm looking at I have an old Studio, like the original aluminum Studio display. I resurrected it. I replaced a chip in it, so that's from the cheese grater Mac days, right? Like mid 2000s, I guess, early 2000s. And then I have a late 2000s Studio LCD display in front of me, and they're fine. I mean, they're not, whiz bang, pro display, pro true tone and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not really doing, print ready work anymore like I used to do, right? Yeah. So, I mean, these, and, like my LCD Studio display I've got in front of me is so old that LED, I guess it is. It has a display port and a USB adapter for it, right? So that's how old it is.
Yeah, you get to modernize a bit, right? Instead of being in Dongle Town.
Yeah, well, I have a dock that plugs into the side of my Mac with like two USBs on it, and I've got all the ports on the back, and I just slap the Mac on that, and it fires up the monitor and all that kind of stuff, right? So, and then actually the other display is so old it has a FireWire adapter on the front of it, on the cable, I mean.
Oh. Yeah, that's
pretty old.
IEEE something or other 364. Is that what it is?
Now it's interesting. So yeah, just to fact check the price of the tilt height adjustable stand, it's $1,099 with this monitor, right? So it's not. I don't know where I got that other number from. Interestingly enough, the Apple Care, which we haven't really talked about much on this show because this is something that came out since we've been doing regular shows, but. It's like $4.99 a month for Apple Care for this guy, for the monitors, or $19 a month if you get the Apple Plus one. Was it called Apple Plus or not Apple Plus? The Apple Care that you can have 3 devices on. And it's it's an America only thing too.
Yeah, I'm struggling to think. It's like Apple Care Plus. The naming is throwing me off.
Actually, I've got it right here in front of me. So Apple Care Plus is the regular Apple Care, which I have. It's either $49.99 US a year or $4.99 a month, or it's $19 a month, and you can cover multiple products. And that's Apple Care 1. That's the sort of, you can do. Doesn't say how many devices you can add to this, right? Yeah, okay. 3 products for $19.99, and then it's $5.99 for additional items. So it's more expensive to add this monitor to an already filled up Apple Care 1 program. Yeah, or you can get no Apple Care coverage, which is free.
There you go. I guess real-time fact check is that FireWire's IEEE 1394. So I was way off, but I was spiritually in the right direction. I knew it had
it reminds me. I got something. I have a couple of devices here that I've been using recently that use FireWire, and I was trying to think what was it called on the Windows side. It was 1394, right? Yeah, IEEE 1394.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, now I can't remember why I was looking for that number. The other thing that they announced was two MacBook Pros, a 16 and a 14, with the new M5 Pro and M5 Max, which we talked about a couple of 3 episodes ago. That we were kind of debating whether or not they were going to have 2 updates this year. Like if there's an M6 later on in the year, will they roll that out? You know?
Yeah.
So the stats on that are 16-core neural engine, this thing called Media Engine, which has to do with like HDMI and things like that. Base again of 1 terabyte of storage, base 24 gigabytes of unified memory, and the Pro pricing is $21.99 and $26.99 for the 14 and the 16, and then the Max pricing is $35.99 and $38.99. But I don't know what the memory configuration on those are. I assume it's still 24 and 1 terabyte, right? Yeah, but I mean, and again, I'm not really sure we need Mark on the show for the difference between the chips, right? Like what makes it a Max? What makes it a?
It's probably the number of efficiency cores versus the burn all the gasoline, kind of cores. I forget what they call those. Power cores? I forget the terminology they use.
It's 8 times faster than the M1. Wow, that's good. It should be at least 5 times faster than the M1, right? Being a 5. Yeah, I can't remember if I ever had. I think I had when I was working for the parking company. I think I had an Ultra or a Pro or something. But I've never really gone into the Pros or the Maxes. I mean, I might have done that back in the old working days, but not so much now. Okay, let's see. We got the M5 and Pro. Okay, I got a comparison page on the 14-inch here, and a 16. So,
okay.
Yeah, you're right. It's a number of cores. So the Pro the going from left to right, M5, M5 Pro, M5 Max. We're talking about 10-core CPU, 15-core CPU, and 18-core CPU. And then on the GPUs, it's 10-core, 16, and 32. And then the base memory is starting at 16 gigabytes, 24 gigabytes, and 36 gigabytes for the 16-inch with the M Pro Max. And then battery life is pretty comparable, 24, 22, and 22. Yeah, so I guess the chip uses up more battery power.
Well, the split that I'm seeing in terminology, so when I go and check the MacBook Pro specs and do the tech specs comparison page, that M5 chip, just M5, is 4 super cores. So that's the burn all the gasoline cores, get performance, and 6 efficiency cores. Whereas you go all the way up to the M5 Max that has the 18, that's 6 super cores. And they don't even claim it's efficiency core. They say 12 performance cores. So the Pros have super cores and performance cores. The Max has super cores and performance cores. But the plain vanilla M5 has super cores and efficiency cores for the CPUs.
Are you on the comparison page?
Apple.com/MacBook Pro/specs, the tech specs.
Oh, I'm on the compare page. That's probably why. Yeah, cool. Oh, I see. Yeah, they've got them all here side by side. Yeah, so if you're into a new MacBook Pro or you're ready for one,
it's enticing.
I got to tell you that the studio displays that you're probably not going to buy anyway, they're not supported on the Intel Macs.
So, I'm taking this 2019 and sort of riding it into the ground. I knew inevitably I'd have to move to Apple Silicon. Apple has not forced the issue yet. Maybe that's the first sort of,
Does that have the touch bar on it?
It does have a touch bar,
Ooh.
which I know you like, but I'm just not a fan. At least I should restate. I don't like that it's touch bar for things that I prefer not to be touch bar. Like I'd rather have a smaller touch bar.
Oh, okay. Right.
Like I always want easy access to volume and
do you not
brightness.
Yeah, but you can do the trick where you touch the volume and you can slide your finger without lifting your finger.
Yeah, but I just want to be able to mash buttons like a monkey for volume and...
Do you have function keys on that thing?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. Which I don't care as much about the function keys. I do care about brightness because sometimes it's like, okay, I really need to quickly mash this up or down. And then volume, like, oh crap, why is this YouTube video so loud?
But doesn't it have like an icon on the front for brightness? I can't remember. It's been so long since I used one. Again, like you click on the little sun icon and you drag your finger to scale it up or down.
Right, but it's just less elegant for very common things. Like I feel like the touch bar is better for, I wouldn't have dedicated a whole button for this permanently, but it's nice to contextually have this button. Like, well, I always want volume. I always want brightness controls.
Yeah, at the bank we had to add the lock button to the touch bar so that, when you got up from your desk, you can lock your computer, because that was one of the policies.
Oh, that's a pretty nice one. I tend to use the hot corners and I just slam it into the upper left for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just take your mouse, slam it to the corner, Fitz law.
So whereas I used to work in an office and, it was a policy that you had to lock your computer when you walked away from the desk.
Yeah, likewise. But for us, I guess because I have not worked in an office since this touch bar existed, you had to set the screensaver to some... In fact, I think IT might even have controlled the max length for your screensaver turn-on time with lock.
After a period of time of activity?
For convenience, instead of trying to go and lock my computer manually, I just let me just have a hot corner and set my upper left where the Apple logo is, and just turn that and be like, if I slam my cursor over there, it's going to turn on the screensaver, which turns on the lock.
So it's interesting when looking at the built-in apps that come with the MacBook Pro, right? You still get Keynote, Freeform, Pages, iMovie, Numbers, and as well as all the other stuff. But I mean, those weren't those part of the new pay by the month sort of thing?
Is that for sure included, or is that like an optional thing that they opt you into?
No, they come with. These are built-in apps. Oh, there's a little footnote. Let me check the footnote. Footnote says, what does footnote say? It says iMovie, GarageBand, Pages, Numbers, Keynote are available on the Mac App Store. Downloading apps requires Apple account. And so you have to download. They're not pre-installed. You have to download them, but they're considered included with the purchase.
I feel like they should have used that term instead of built-in app, which kind of implies...
Well, it's built-in app with a little 10 for a footnote, right? So
if I go to the Mojave Desert, I should be able to use it. It was like, sucks to be you. You better turn on your Starlink.
My point was that these are the ones that are part of that subscription model, right?
Right.
But it seems like kind of odd that they still get them for free, which is good to know. All right, so the big little announcement, I guess, right, was this morning. So I was telling Jaime before the show that I set my alarm to wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning because it was supposed to be announced at 9 o'clock Eastern time, only to find out that it wasn't being broadcast live over the air, right? It wasn't being streamed live. It was an in-person event in, I think, New York, London, and Shanghai. So I don't know if they all were coordinated to pronounce at the same time, because it would have been 9 o'clock at night in Shanghai. Yeah, so we got the MacBook Neo, which I guess I was one of the only people on the planet who didn't know the name of it. It's not a 12-inch, right? It's a 13-inch display. So I don't know what the physical dimensions of it are compared to a MacBook Air, right? But it doesn't have a notch on the top of the screen. These are from my notes. The keyboard, they're calling it a Magic Keyboard. So I think it's similar to the iPad keyboards, right, in terms of mechanics.
Yeah. That makes sense. It kind of, especially given the visualization that I see here from some of these articles, kind of got that look.
It only has ports on the left side, so it's got 2 USB-C ports, which are similar to that dock I was just talking about here. I could probably plug I think they're all spaced the same, so I could still use my hardware dongles on it to expand the ports. But just a headphone jack and a what do you call it? 2 USB-Cs, and somebody was complaining that if you no MagSafe, right? So if you plug in your, I don't know if does the MacBook Air have MagSafe, but I never use my MagSafe. I have a MagSafe cable here with my 14-inch. I never use it. I just use the USB-C ports, and the reason why is because I'm usually sitting on the couch with my Vision Pro, which uses USB-C, with my phone, which uses USB-C, and my Mac, which uses USB-C, and whichever one is complaining, hey, I'm down to 10%, gets the cable. You know what I mean? So I MagSafe is a convenience. I guess in case my dog trips my computer or whatever, right?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, because you do have the dog, and the sizable dogs that could reasonably just tail, whip. And then pulls your machine off the coffee table or something.
Well, the old guy doesn't do stairs anymore, so he doesn't come down here anymore, right? He used to come down and jump on the couch and sleep next to me. Mind you, I sit on the left edge of the couch, so that's where everything would plug in anyway. So the dogs don't really go there much unless they're looking for crumbs or something, right?
I see. Rooting around for truffles like pigs, right? Like as they're wanting to do. Like they haven't gotten their bellies full already. They got to look for stuff.
Well, I don't know about your dogs, but my dogs, if you're going to the kitchen and you're anywhere near preparing food or even eating food, they stand there and watch you like hawks because something's going to hit the floor, right? So they must think we're incompetent or something. But anyway, yeah. So no MagSafe, which I don't care. I think it's better than the 12-inch because the 12-inch only had one USB-C port, so you were kind of screwed if you needed to charge and plug in something or other, right? So interesting. It still has an edge headphone jack though in 2026. I think that's funny.
I mean, it is entry level, so they can't necessarily assume that you got sweet headphones. It's like, hey, those free headphones that you got somewhere or from the dollar store, plug them in.
Well,
and you can
I'm
listen
thinking
to
you're going to go off and buy yourself the what do you call the AirPod Max or whatever, the ones that would fit over your head. The fancy Apple headphones.
Yeah, I mean they're basically the same.
They're more expensive than the Mac.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they're calling it the Magic Keyboard, so I assume it's like the keyboard I have on my in front of me right now on my Mac, my iPad, because it's a Magic Keyboard, right? It has side-firing speakers with spatial audio, which is kind of cool because you still get the sort of surround sound kind of effect, right? It comes in colors, which people like: silver, indigo, blush, and citrus. Which is I always wondered, when the iMacs came out and they all had like you had the lime and you had the blueberry and you had the the carbon whatever. I always thought they never made a yellow one because then it would be the iMac Lemon.
There we go.
No, not going to go there.
That's okay. Sunshine or something, marigold, lemon.
So it has A18 chip on it, which is, if you think about it, last year's mobile chip, right? Not an M chip, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if the A18 is comparable to an M series chip at all, right?
I mean, remember, sort of, I guess, right? I mean, I don't think it's going to be quite as snazzy. This is like running an iPad inside of a MacBook, right? Like, I don't know. Do people still do those body kits where it's like, I took my Volkswagen Beetle, put a new body kit, and now it's a Corvette?
Yes. Yeah. Or DeLorean kind of thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are cool. So back to the features, A18 chip, which I think is interesting. The keys on the keyboard are tinted the same color as whatever you buy. So if you buy the silver one, you get white keys. If you buy the blush one, you get sort of pinkish keys, right? 16-hour battery life, which is still not too shabby. Only 8 gigs of RAM. I think that was one thing that somebody pointed out was an issue, right?
People are clowning on this, but like it's not a market probably not for people who listen to this show, just to be quiet. Like you're probably an artist or a developer, just something that needs a little bit more oomph. But if you're thinking about the student who would
definitely
a Chromebook,
for sure,
or like an entry-level Surface laptop, which I think is more expensive than this, and definitely not as good of a build quality. Like that's the mindset you got to be thinking of. Like finding a way for Apple to go down market without giving up the what was the max for the Mac Pro? Was it 3,900? Let's call it 3,900 US for the 16-inch MacBook Pro M5 Max.
Yeah.
So kind of
and there's pricing too. I mean, the pricing of the 13-inch is probably, the 13-inch MacBook Air. Let's look at the pricing here. So yeah, so I mean, an Air starts at $1,000 or $1,099, right? Whereas this starts at $599. So it's, from a point, it's like Chromebook kind of technology, right? Like comparison, I guess, right? So you can get it with if you get the 256 model, which is the base. Again, I don't know why even a poor student, I don't know why you would get a 256 model. I could be wrong. But the 512 comes with Touch ID, which is a difference, right? Yeah, so I guess from a dollars and cents point of view, it's half the price of a MacBook Air, right? More or less.
It really gets to that. The salespeople should just be asking you, how much money do you have? Like, what's your budget? What's your budget for this? Great. This is the model that makes sense for the budget you stated. And then you can decide, that's not enough machine. Great. Go up, increase your budget. Or, that's too much machine. Great.
Yeah, but I think it's ideal for an entry level person like your mom or whatever. or a student going to school, right? You can just, this is like a good, inexpensive, get the kid a Mac for school kind of deal, right? And actually, it's cheaper if you buy it as an educational discount, I would think. I don't know if, actually, don't quote me on that, because I'm not sure if they're doing educational pricing on these models, right? But a couple of days later, here's an inline fact check. It turns out that there is an educational price for the brand new MacBook Neo, and it's $499. So that's the fact check. Yeah, and it's like, so it's $50 a month if you get it on a plan, right? For 12 months. So that's stomachable.
I mean, we always joke about the, it's a stocking stuffer kind of price. Yeah. It's not quite, but it's getting there at $599. I mean, it's the kind of thing where, and to be really clear, I think when you say student, people who are shaking their fists should understand. We don't mean like computer science student who wants to run the latest LLMs locally. It's like, no. We're talking like regular student.
English lit and history and yeah.
Basically everything that could use mostly the internet. Use the cloud-based LLMs. Use Google Docs. Use some productivity software that comes with the Mac, but not like, oh my god, I got to use Maya, or I'm gonna make the next video game right here on this laptop. It's like, well, you're gonna make Mario, like Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah, you're not running Xcode on this thing seriously, because you barely have enough room to install it. But
yeah.
But like, I have a couple of family members who use iPads in school with the Magic Keyboard, right? Because it was like the right size form factor for them, and I mean, I'm looking at my 11-inch. If I have an 11-inch MacBook Pro or iPad Pro in front of me, if I had a 13-inch, it would be the same size as this, right? So, and probably about the same price, really, when you get down to it, right? So, or less. The only thing I'm thinking, like, I was thinking about this morning was, why didn't they make this thing with a touchscreen or with like so it could be sort of an iPad Mac hybrid?
I don't know why they flirt, right? I mean, with the Magic Keyboard on an iPad, you've kind of got a touch sensitive.
Well, you have a trackpad, yeah, for sure.
MacBook. They're asymptotically getting close from both directions to making what you described there. I don't know if they are unwilling, just for pride reasons, to have was it Steve Jobs' gorilla arm thing? It's like people are just prepared. They know exactly where to get the news article. They know exactly the video. They're just like, it's almost like the social media manager says, please, for all that's holy, don't make a touch sensitive one because it's going to destroy me personally.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, it's kind of funny. It could. I think the real reason actually I was going to say was because I think Mac OS and iPad OS are still that far apart in terms of technology, in terms of like operating systems and stuff, and memory management, disk storage access, and that kind of stuff, right? Because we know we all use the same Lego pieces when we put together a Mac app versus an iPad app, and especially now with Swift UI, we can write both platforms or multiple platforms with Swift UI. There's still people who are doing AppKit. There's still people who do UIKit. And there's a divide there, right? Especially in terms of like classes and stuff. But even still, like some of the multi-platform apps that I've written recently, I had to use NS image as opposed to UI image and things like that. And how you write the menus for the Mac on Swift UI is different than how you don't do menus on other devices, right? Like, the menu bar across the top of your Mac screen there, right? So I think there's still a big, huge divide, and that may be why like you said, they're flirting with it, but I don't know if they're really flirting with it or they're getting close, but they've never really been able to cross that divide, right? To part the waters, as Moses would say.
It doesn't seem like a technical issue. Like, I think it's definitely achievable. It feels like a distinct design choice or product choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other side of it is too that, like, Vision OS, iPad OS, and iOS, they're not quite walled gardens, but they might as well be. The way they approach, data storage and sandboxing are quite different than the Mac. The Mac is kind of still, the Wild West, right? It's like, it's like an episode of Fallout. You've got all this stuff bolted on, right? Sort of thing, right? Whereas the iOS and iPad OS and Vision OS and TV OS, and even HomePod OS or whatever they call that, Home OS, I think, right? they're all very much, like planned to be kind of like self-contained, right? To protect us from ourselves, I keep saying, right?
Jurassic Park rules, thinking about our hubris.
Well, and the other thing too is, like, we've always talked about this too, like, why can't you develop on an iPad, or Vision OS for that much matter, is because when the Mac does a build, it actually runs a whole bunch of stuff underneath, right? It runs a whole bunch of stuff on the command line, and because Xcode isn't just building the app; it's using all these built-in Unix commands to do it, right? To do a build and stuff like that. So yeah, so I guess you and I both think of Macs as development environments, right? But for just consuming content, it's it's either an iPad or a Mac, but depends on how deep you want to go, right? Like, what I'm saying is that if you work with an iPad enough, that while now you can do a lot of things that were very difficult to do 5 years ago, right? It's still not as open as a Mac.
True.
But your kid in school, whether it's university or high school, or even middle school, or even grade school, doesn't need anything more powerful, right? So I guess we'll circle back and do the Greg Heo question for you. Is there anything on this list that we talked about today that you would consider buying?
I'm really considering, and I have to think about what I would get if I was going to a new MacBook Pro. Definitely a 16-inch, so it's like a $1,200 difference here, right, between the M5 Pro and M5 Pro Max.
But would you go with a Pro or a Max, or would you just go with an M5?
My thinking here is to max out, no pun intended, the RAM for sure.
Yeah.
And not so much the SSD, because I can just do stuff in the cloud. And if I need local, it's pretty cheap to just buy little hard drives here and there, SSDs. So I'd max out more on CPU, GPU, and RAM, with the idea of, again, if people weren't paying attention or they just woke up in the middle of the show here, like, I've been riding this 2019, 7 years. I could ride this M5 until there's an M12,
Well, it's funny, I'm happy with this M4 that I've got, right? Is it M4? Let me just check. Yes, it's an M4. But I went with a 2 terabyte drive. I bought a 2 terabyte drive on my last Intel, and I found it was just too big, right? I kept filling it up with stuff, and I really didn't like the fact I couldn't really back it up reliably. So my second Mac, my M1, I went back down to 1 terabyte, right? But because of Xcode and all that kind of stuff, and Final Cut Pro and things like that, these things that grow in the background, I found it was really constrained. So I went back to this current purchase I have. I went to a 2 terabyte, and I don't think I'd go any bigger than that. But I went with 32 gigs of RAM. And what's interesting is I moved my Final Cut editing. I put it on an SSD, right? So I don't run, because wherever you have the Final Cut archive library thing, that's where it uses up all the disk space to render, right? So I moved that off to, like, I think I have a 1 terabyte or a 5 terabyte or 500 gigabyte, sorry, SSD drive, and so I plug that in whenever I want to do any Final Cut stuff, right? But the other day I was doing Final Cut, and I had Xcode running and something else, and I kept getting all these memory warnings that my Mac was running out of memory, right? So I had to shut down things, right? And I didn't bother restarting at that point. I probably should have, but and it could be the clean my Mac menu thing keeps warning me when I'm running low on memory. But at one point, I have 32 gigabyte actual physical RAM on this computer, right? Plus whatever the system's using. And I'm editing a movie, right? For the last episode with Alexis. And my Mac complained that that Final Cut Pro was using 74 gigabytes of RAM, which basically means it was using disk for swap, right? But yeah, I mean, like, who would have thought that 32 gigabytes of RAM was not enough RAM in a Mac, right? I mean, I don't do video every day, right? But yeah, it's kind of pushing the edge and like I said, I think before the show we started, the latest version, I'm not sure if it's the latest version of whatever OS I'm on, 26.3, I think. 26.3. I don't know if there's something wrong with the way it handles memory, because it's only been in the last, little while that I've had this problem. But then it could also be some of the agents I'm running on the background, right? The AI stuff, right? Although I don't know if it's, can't imagine it'd be running all the time, right? yeah. Anyway,
I mean, it's a hard one to answer because so much of this stuff is changing. I mean, we're talking about the Claude bot stuff and other things. We're continuously doing stuff for you locally in the cloud, a mixture of both. I think that will end up changing some of how we look at machine specs, which is a lot what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
I think for today, like where we stand right now, for students who are like, hey, you can probably do a bunch of stuff in the cloud. You really don't need your machine to be that beefy. Maybe a couple of years from now, maybe like, you're going to need some beef locally because you're going to want to run some models closer to you for speed, privacy, whatever the case may be. The cloud stuff will always, I think, won't be a necessity for like the truly beefy models, but it's just shocking what some of these smaller Apple LLMs are able to do, or the smaller Google ones are able to do. It's getting pretty wild. So, for me, I think that buying a machine that I can afford to max out as best I can today just means that I can ride it out longer, right? If you skimp out and you go that absolute minimum 8 gig MacBook Neo, I'm like, yeah, you're probably going to be done with that by the time your schooling ends. Your 4 years of high school, your 4 years of college, whatever it is. I think that's probably about time to replace it. Whereas for me, if I max this out, I joked about going 7 more years or 7 years, just like I did this Intel Mac, and going from an M5 to an M12.
Yeah, I wonder how much faster it is than your computer.
I mean, people are like, why do they keep comparing to M1? I'm like, because Apple Silicon is so good, it just does not make sense for, again, most people. If you're in high-end video games or movie production, 3D modeling, whatever it is, like your mileage may vary, but for most people, these laptops do not need to be replaced every year or every 2 years, right? So you don't want to compare to M4 to M3 to M2. M1 seems like a good basis to compare against. It's about time to upgrade if you bought an M1 and then now you're like, yeah, it's 4 years later. Yep, this M5 is going to be, what did we just say? What were the stats? How much faster?
8 times faster than an M1.
There you go. And remember how shocked everyone was at how good the M1 was back in its day.
Mm-hmm.
It's no slouch, but it could be 8 times faster if you get the new one.
Oh, show. Cool. All right. Well, I mean, I guess I should answer the question myself too, right? So yeah, I don't think there's anything on this list that I'm looking at getting. I'm not interested in a Pro or a Max. The Neo is tempting, but I don't really want to get a Neo right now. I'd probably get a MacBook Mini before I get one of these guys. I did, however, when I went to China last year, I didn't want to take my day computer, so I went and bought a M1 off of Carrot. I got a 256 M1 from there, and I just used it as I figured I would start from scratch and just put whatever I needed from my GitHubs on there. Did my, my keynote, obviously, for my talk. And then when I got home, I just completely wiped it, right? So, because everybody was telling me don't take and no offense to the Chinese listeners here, but don't take mind you, they probably agree with me. Don't take a Mac into China and expect it to come back unharmed, right?
Increasingly true in a lot of border crossing scenarios. So
yeah, it was funny, like when we were there, we all had our firewalls, right? That was like, we would bring TunnelBear or whatever we were using for our VPNs and stuff. But sometimes the hotel network wouldn't let you get on and do things unless you turned it off, which basically opens you up to all kinds of crap, right? So who knew? Anyway, let's move on to our picks. I see you've got something here for your pick.
Yeah, in honor of your own Pi Day countdown, we got Pi in other universes. So it starts with the basics of pi, right, as the ratio between circumference and diameter of a circle. That says, okay, but what if you're looking at things that aren't necessarily circles, like a Manhattan distance or a maximal distance? And you can end up with pi in those coordinate systems being 3 or 4. You mean not 314159? I mean, if you're rounding, my manager has a T-shirt that is, my password is the last 4 digits of pi. Right. Yeah. So there you go. It's it's a fun sort of thing to see, like how the mathematical proof works, and then the visualizations for like 3 equals pi in this this hexagonal system. It's pretty fascinating. And like I said, just kind of cute. Like,
oh, right. Pi Day countdown. Pi Day's coming up. Thanks for reminding me.
There you go.
I forgot. Well, for those of you driving at home, the reason I made the app in the first place, because I was attending a conference in 2010, 2011 that landed on March 14th, right? And Steve Heyman from Apple used to get up on the podium and he would say it was Pi Day. And then so we decided to make an app to show Steve, we'd made this Pi Day countdown app, and unfortunately it got stuck in review and didn't get approved until the morning of the conference. So they kind of ruined the joke for me. But I did actually meet him years later and tell him that I had done that for him. And so, which leads to my pick. Besides, I mean, I could talk about Pi quite a bit. I'm amazed at Pi. Like do you know when a pendulum swings? If you measure the pendulum swing, that's actually Pi, no matter how long the arc is.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
One of the reasons why. Yeah, there's a lot of different things which there's something I was just reading a little while ago. Like there's all kinds of things where Pi turns out to be the actual number that makes the equation or whatever. But speaking of Pi Day countdown, so I was going to write an article about my updates to Device Tracker because I used AI. I used an early version of Code to refactor some of the Objective-C into Swift UI and Swift, right? So for the sake of the article, which I still haven't written, folks, so I apologize for that, I took Pi Day countdown and I refactored it from manual memory management Objective-C to completely Swift UI. So the version that's on the App Store now is completely written in Swift UI, right? And including Claude even did the UI design for me too, right? So yeah, it's pretty cool. And it has all the features that we had in the old app, but and it even supports the. I think I talked about this on another podcast or video or something about when I was building the app. It had used the old format. I can't remember if I used a plist or something like that, or a flat file to store your you can have multiple holidays that you store. You can have your birthday and stuff like that in the app, right? Mm-hmm. And it'll trigger a local notification when your birthday lands, right? As well as Pi, obviously, Pi Day, which is March 14th, as I mentioned before. But the AI used the same file name but changed it to JSON. So it basically clobbered the existing data you would have on your phone. So I had to explain to the AI, no, you must use a different file name, or if you're changing the format of the data, you can't clobber the old data on a person's phone, right? So we went back and fixed that. So fortunately, I only lost it on one of my phones. But yeah, so that was kind of interesting. But so my pick, though, is around agentic coding. So I've been doing a lot of agentic coding. Obviously, for me, Claude AI is the one I'm kind of leaning on right now. You can use Codex and you can use Cursor. I've used Cursor for some web development, PHP stuff, and I used Codex initially, but I'm pretty much sold on Claude AI. I canceled all my other monthly subscriptions. I'm just using Claude right now. So, and what's nice about it is they now have a downloadable app that I can run it, and so the conversations exist in the downloaded app, or I can go to the web and ask questions, or I can use it in Xcode as part of 26.3 Xcode. But I can also use it in VS Code. So I have a VS Code Claude agent that I load there. And like I said, the conversations, it remembers my conversations between the 3 or 4 different environments, right? I don't use it on the command line, although a lot of people swear by Claude on the command line. But the thing I want to talk about today was I attended a talk by Paul Hudson. He did a live thing a couple of weekends ago, and I'll put a link here in the show notes for the YouTube because he's published it there. But one thing I took away from that thing was not just on how to do use AI in your work, in your Swift UI work or whatever, which Paul does cover. The thing I took away the most was the idea of using agents. And the thing about, like, he's published an example library here on his GitHub. Like, for example, one of the weird things that we've all found about using agents is, you'll be building a modern Swift UI, Swift 6 application, and it'll start putting in things like combine and a few other things, even though it should be using async await kind of thing, right? Which is kind of the more modern way to work. So, well, what Paul's agent file here does is it's a markdown file that you put into your environment, in my case, because I'm using Claude, I put it in my home folder, and I can make it. I just rename it, put it in a folder called .claude, and it'll apply to any app I run, any project I run. You can also just put it in if you want to just have an agent live inside one project. You don't want, maybe you don't want to use. Sorry, I'm talking about. I'll fact check myself. I'm just reading the note here, but you can have it just run per project, or you can have it run in your entire environment. In my case, I put it in my environment, but it tells the AI to use things. For example, I'm reading from Paul's agent file here to target iOS 26 or later, and in brackets he's got yes, it definitely exists, because sometimes the agents will say there's no such thing as iOS 26. You want to use 6.2, Swift 6.2 or later with modern Swift concurrency. You want to use Swift UI backed up by observable, not observable object in the older versions, right? And then you list all these sort of rules that you want to have in your app, and it will. So the Claude agent will, when it runs a prompt from you, it will look at this file and find out what the game rules are, ground rules are. Sure, I should say, I meant to say ground rules. So it'll use these instructions, and of course you can add to this if you want. You have your own things, right? Like maybe you have a naming convention you want to use or something like that. And the agent will then write the code for you in such a way that it will match what your rules are, right? Now, yeah, and the other thing too, I don't know if for those of you who don't know what agentic coding was, obviously I didn't know until a couple of months ago. But what it is normally previously when you ran a prompt, it would run a prompt and it would break your Xcode project, and you'd have to tell it to go and fix the 27 build errors that it added to the project, right? Now what the agents do is they'll run the code, and they'll do a build, and if it fails, they'll fix the failures before they say, "Okay, I'm done." So in other words, you give it a task of what you want it to do, and it will go through and it'll build and build and build and build, and correct itself until it gets to the point where it's finished the assignment you gave it, right? So it's pretty cool. So the agent file sort of keeps it within the scope of what you want to do. The other thing you can do is you can add skills, and I got a link here from Mahala. I forget Mahala's last name, but she's published a thing called Cupertino, and I may have talked about this on the show before. Oh, here it is, Mahalovic, or Mihailovich. I'm sorry, I don't know the pronunciation of that correctly, but she's got a bunch of different things called Cupertino, and what's cool about this one is it will download the Apple documentation into your environment so that you get all of the latest documentation from Apple, because one of the things about the agents is they're trained up to a certain level of knowledge, and then they kind of learn as they go, and they get better all the time. And Alexis talked about it on the last show. If you haven't listened to it, he talked about the fact that style of late learning isn't necessarily true anymore, but that's the one I know about, so I'm going to talk about it from that perspective. But what this Cupertino file does is it pulls in the latest information from Apple, right? Plus, you can also create skills, and the skills allow it to sort of work within the framework you want it to work in. So she's got in her example here on her GitHub of this Cupertino project all kinds of different. She's got some skill examples. She's got some agent examples. She's got some Swift linting and Swift formatting and that kind of stuff, right? So if you look at her installation instructions on how to install, it's pretty simple actually. But yeah, this is another sort of tool to back up and give you some sort of standards for how you want to work with your code. So I don't know if you've been poking around there, Jaime, and looking at what these two things are talking about, but do you have any thoughts on that at all? Yeah,
the MCP server is interesting because there's definitely folks using MCP model context protocol stuff to say, hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could help me with the documentation? And just like the agent's markdown file in the other repo of like, hey, I know you were trained and 26 didn't exist. It definitely does. And here's how you figure out that it does. Like, that's helpful because you have these point in time knowledge bases that make up the LLM, and giving it other tools like MCP or things like skills to tell it, hey, let's give you some guidance here. I think the MCP server is really cool. I hope that this sort of stuff Apple starts to incorporate as it puts more more agentic features inside of Xcode. In terms of the agents file, so taking a step back, if you look at this agents.md file, and if you just stripped out the word agents or agents from there, and you take a step back and look at it, doesn't it seem a lot like a style guide that you would just tell an engineer anyways?
Yeah.
Hey man, we don't use observable objects. We use, this thing. Bro, are you not familiar with dynamic type? It makes people sad when they can't make their phone's font bigger. Have you thought about accessible? Like, there's just all sorts of stuff here that it's fascinating that writing stuff down is going to be one of the most powerful sort of, engineering skills you can have, which for those of us who have talked a lot about the intersection between technology and humanities, hey, guess what? That humanities piece of being just able to write a dang essay and describe to people in words what do you want accomplished is much more meaningful now in an engineering. It always was meaningful, but there were always people, well, I know exactly how to twiddle the bits. It's like, well, you might do a lot of that, but increasingly you're going to have these agents helping you do that. If you cannot concretely describe in words what you want, you're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, which nothing wrong with that. But, carpenters who only use hand tools versus those who use hand tools where it makes sense and they use power tools where they can get efficiencies. I think that's the sort of mixture we're going to see.
Yeah, that's a good analogy too, because I do a lot of woodwork, and sometimes you want to carve it yourself, but other times you want to just, if you want to rip through a bunch of things, I pull out the table saw or I pull out the drill press, right? Or you
cutting those 2x4s, you cutting them by hand.
Yeah. Or like I've made stair ends. I've carved things literally physically by hand because I didn't have the thing or couldn't find a reasonably priced stair end or whatever. But if I'm drilling a hole, I can generally hold a drill pretty perpendicular to the work surface, right? But sometimes if I'm making shelving and I have to drill 50 holes in a line, all this evenly spaced apart, I'll use a tool for that. I'll use a drill press with a stop and that's what I think a lot of people talked about agentic coding or even using any kind of AI here. A lot of people say, but I like writing code, right? Well, more power to you. I don't always like writing code. You know what I mean? I like the idea of building things. I like the magic of creating the code that have it, make the button go bing and stuff like that. But, at some point it becomes drudgery, right? And you can get more precision out of using a proper tool, right? And for those of you driving at home, MCP is Model Context Protocol, and that basically is informing the agent or the AI how you want to work, right, kind of thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about, on multiple calls I've been on the last couple of weeks. Some people are working in environments where they're not allowed to they have to use the company approved, IT approved, agent or whatever, whether it's Microsoft One or GitHubs or whatever, right? But yeah, all of these tools are coming together, and it's kind of cool to see what Anthropic is doing and what Microsoft and GitHub are doing, and what it's all about automation at the end of the day, right? Like we've said on this show for the last 12 years. It's been 12 years, by the way, Jaime. That one day it's going to get to the point where you're going to push a button and it'll build the app for you, right? So we're getting there.
Tantalizingly close for that. I think it was a joke back then when we were like, oh my gosh, look how much this, whatever it was at the time, it was like Swift Playgrounds or some other thing where it does or the latest and greatest Xcode templates where, it gives you something that's reasonably working just out of the box.
Yeah, or those macros used to run in Xcode before they took that feature away, right? Or like Cocoa Pods or Swift Package Manager, right? So it's not really that much different, I was watching a video the other day on two new tools. I got to look them up because I forget the names of them. But this was like from a designer point of view of how they use Claude to design things, right? Let me get the thing again. Another thing for the show notes. Let me just find my message here. So they use a thing called Cosmos to do like a mood board, where they basically grabbed a bunch of images to fix up the colors they wanted, the way they wanted them. And then they use a thing called Weary AI to sort of take those and actually create designs that they could then drop into Figma, right? So they actually designed the look and feel of their app using AI. from a designer point of view, which I thought was really cool. I'll post a link to the video for that as well in the show notes. It's all cool stuff, I think.
It's definitely very neat. Check in 3 to 6 months from now of like, will we have the same advice? Or like, again, one of the things, just think about how not that long ago it was, you want to get extra oomph or smarter, responses out of the LLM. You tell it, hey, you are a travel agent. You are a programmer that does this.
You are a senior iOS developer, exactly.
And it's changed from time to time. Like, no, you don't need to do that. It infers it, and now you're just wasting tokens. It used to be, tell it, please. It's, okay, it makes it better. And it's like, no, don't do that anymore. It wastes tokens. Like the landscape changes quite a bit. So it's really hard to keep up with. So having things like, Paul Hudson's repo, it's like, I assume you can submit a pull request of, hey, Paul, turns out with the latest Cloud Opus 5.7.2, we should actually add this line. Otherwise, it goes bonkers.
Well, I don't think Paul Hudson sleeps because I think if they introduce something new, he'll be on top of it before you will. That's my experience.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he updates it. So you may want to just create a track for it rather than just downloading it, right? I know Mahalia, she's been talking about Cupertino for 3-4 months now when I first heard about it. So I know she'll be doing updates all the time too. So and there's nothing stopping you from writing your own rules, right? So if you have like rules that work within your company or whatever, like I said before, maybe a naming convention or whatever, you can tell an AI to do it. Like the other day I was doing something, I have a whole bunch of categories in this one app, right? And so I have a local host test environment and I have my production environment. And I had these cases where, I have a category coming in from the back end and I equate it to like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or whatever. And when I had done the local host version, I just kind of put them in as I kind of came across them. So they were all out of order. So I said to the AI, hey, can you take these and put them in order based on their case name? And it just went through and it just looks better in the code. I mean, it doesn't do anything, doesn't stop the app from working, right? Because there's just case statements, but it puts them in a nice look, pleasing order. You can do things like that with AI as well. It doesn't have to be write me a whole app. It can be just find some typos or whatever, right? So that kind of stuff, right? I love it. My favorite thing about working with these agents is you'll have it do something, and then 2 minutes later, you'll find a problem with it, and it'll say, well, it's the way you wrote the code. When, in fact, you didn't write the code. The AI wrote the code 2 minutes ago. That's my favorite thing. So I guess that's it for another week. So if people want to get in touch with you, Jaime, where would they do that?
I'm on Instagram as @DevOfTheHair.
All right. And my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA. You can find me lurking on Blue Sky, Mastodon, Threads, this new Canadian one called Substack. And yeah, just about anywhere that there's a username, it's probably mine. So until next time, we'll see you in the future.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been another episode of the More Than Just Code podcast. If you want to find out more about the show, you can visit the More Than Just Code website at morethanjustcode.com. There you can find a summary and show notes of each episode. We list links to the apps, code, and news that we mentioned on the show. If you like the podcast, tell your friends, leave a comment on the website, or write a review on iTunes. And please recommend us in your favorite podcatcher. All of these things help others find out about the show. We really appreciate your help with spreading the word. We'd love to hear from you, so use the hashtag AskMTJC and we may mention you on the show. Friends of the show can also join us on the podcast Slack channel. Please consider supporting the show by pledging any amount on patreon.com/MTJC. Every dollar pledged helps a lot. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Don't forget to tune in to YouTube or to Spotcast. If you're still listening to the after show, that is. Cool. So what time does Academy come on for you? Does it come on, like for me, it comes on at midnight my time.
I believe it is like 9 p.m.
Okay, yeah. Same time for you.
That gives me a little bit of time, like depending how I'm feeling, how tired or other stuff that's going on. I might be able to catch an episode tonight, Pacific time, or at least watch half an hour so that even if I have a rushed lunch, I can finish it during lunchtime, tomorrow kind of thing. Thursday.
Oh, that reminds me, I got to put that Blink. I saw that Blink of an Eye movie. It was like it just came on something the other day. Disney, I think, maybe. Yeah, I think it's on Disney. Nobody's updated the show notes yet, so I guess I'll do it right now. Oh, yeah, episode 8. That's next week, right?
I thought we were on 9 this time.
Yeah, episode 9. Yeah. Okay, I know it is for sure. I've got my watch list here, so I'll put Blink of an Eye because I watched that. And what else? I watched a couple of things this week, and I've been watching Paradise as well. And are you going to catch up on that one, or?
Do you know how many episodes there are going to be? Is it an 8-episode season again?
Yeah, did you watch season 1 already?
Seen season 1, and I'm now, 4 episodes in the hole for season 2, so...
Yeah, I just started watching, I don't know what day of the week it comes out on, right? There's 4 currently today.
I think it's a Monday, Tuesday, early in the week show.
Go over Letterboxd and see what I watched. Yeah, because all I watched Begonia, I watched that one, but I talked about that last week, didn't I? Yeah, I did. And The Long Walk and Frankenstein. Yeah, I think one of the ones I watched was like a 99-cent rental, maybe a Begonia. For me, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sir. Well, I'm going to let you get back to it.
All right.
And I'll get back to it, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
On the morrow, as we say on this podcast.